Hello and welcome back to the port. I'm the Gav Major, and this is a review of the Russian Tech Tree Tier 7 alternative cruiser, the Riga, which became fully researchable this patch. Now, the Riga is a early heavy cruiser design variant of the Project 82 cruiser design, which would eventually develop towards the Stalingrad class battle cruisers, which were obviously designed but never really came to fruition. However, Stalingrad is in the game. She's a legendary tier cruiser for 2 million global XP. I have done a review of the Stalingrad, and that'll be carded top right now, or at least a gameplay I should say. So, this is a Tier 7 and Legendary game of domination on Haven. On the M team we have a Shimakaze, a Riga, a Mainz, an Alaska, a Richelieu, a Vanguard, an Iowa, and 2 Grosser Curvests. Spawn on the left hand flank, and I'm not necessarily keen on rushing in and getting focused on this kind of game, or this map at least. It's usually best to sometimes just play a little bit cautious at the start and see how things develop and where teams go. Usually both teams usually heavily focus the Bravo objective, and depending on how the enemy team position themselves, it might open up an opportunity for me to move into Charlie. We'll have to wait and see. So the Riga, in comparison to the other Tier 7 Tech Tree cruisers only. Survivability, she has the third highest HP of 42,000. She also has the fourth lowest HP pool of 54,768. Reason being is her repair parties aren't the most amazing, is the best way to put it. When it comes to the torpedo protection, she has a torpedo reduction of 19%, which is the joint best for the tier. When it comes to the armour scheme, it's always best to go back to the port and take a look at the armour viewer there. So welcome back to the port, taking a look at the armour scheme of the Riga. Let's start off with the superstructure. That is pretty much covered in 16mm plating all over, apart from obviously the oddities here and there, I guess you could say, but that superstructure basically is capable of ricocheting 8-inch AP, should it be angled, which is an interesting one. Also the low caliber AP, but it basically means it will be fully saturatable by HE should it come under fire, and it is big and it is large, although obviously some of the secondary mounts, the command citadel and the rear command citadel, all have slightly thicker armour, I guess you could say. Taking that away, obviously allows you to see how big it really is. Let's move on to the torpedo bulge. This is all practically below the waterline, and it does cover the centre proportion of the ship, and it's not really going to take much effect when it comes to shells, so we can just take that away. Well, let's start off with continue with the bow and the stern. Now, the interesting part with the Riga is her upper armoured belt and her armoured deck, I guess you could say, is 25mm thick, which is capable of ricocheting 14-inch AP when angled, which means that this ship can bow and stern tank 14-inch battleships. Obviously she will take hurt from HE, but from AP she can pretty much bounce it all off. However, it's also worth noting she does have a lower icebreaker, which consists of 40mm of plating. This is sufficient to ricochet 16-inch AP when angled. Now we'll talk a bit more about this when we come to looking at the citadel, but it's worth noting, look at that line. That icebreaker matches up with the lower armoured belt. So against 14-inch gun battleships, you can probably bow tank if you wanted to, or even just angle. Against everything else, you might want to consider angling, but we'll have a look a bit later on. So, upper armoured belt and armoured deck. This is up to 35mm thick, and the lower armoured belt is 140mm thick. This is basically practically capable of ricocheting anything and everything, AP wise, when it comes to incoming AP shells, I guess you say. HE shells as well, also resistant to 8-inch HE. Obviously, you're still going to get hurt from a high caliber HE, but that's quite a nice thing to know. Most of those fire-breathing cruisers down this tier aren't going to be able to really hurt your main hull. They will be able to touch your superstructure, but not your hull, which is quite an interesting thing. And so let's take that. Well, before we take it away, it's worth noting at the very front of a turret, this armour scheme is kind of snow ploughed either side, and same at the stern, so that potentially might be quite useful when it comes to ricocheting some of those incoming shells. Let's take that away. turrets and barbettes. These turrets are thick, 230mm on the rear, 170 on the barbette, 260 on the frontal plating, and the side goes up to 200mm thick. So basically, your turrets are going to be generally quite survivable. I mean, it doesn't mean they're going to be completely invulnerable, but they are quite heavily plated, which is certainly something that's a feather in your cap when it comes to survivability of your turrets. The Citadel, it's big, it's long, it's above the waterline. It does have these slightly snow-ploughed ends, which we were discussing earlier, and the majority of it is 40mm and up when it comes to thickness. However, it's worth noting that obviously this is going to be heavily protected by your armoured belt. So as long as you're angled, the only place they're really going to be able to touch you is going to be if they try and punch through your nose. But if you try and punch through the nose, you can see that the icebreaker really does a good job at protecting the front of your citadel. It's only going to be, say, long-range plunging shells of like high caliber AP, which might punch through, say, the deck and the upper armoured belt. That might be able to then find their way into the frontal plating of the citadel. But generally, at close ranges, it's going to be quite hard for an AP shell to obviously punch through the upper armoured belt and find its way into the citadel. There's only a small proportion, maybe that far right corner. Apart from that, there's a good chance it might just ricochet off the top of the citadel. So generally, I guess if you can get nice and angled, you can probably close in with this ship. Obviously, practice will make perfect, and we'll see when it comes to the game. But yeah, in general, Armour scheme of the Riga appears to be very survivable. Well, let's get back to the game and see how we're doing. So I've got my RDF, and it's pointing to the other side of the sign, so we're going to we'll see what appears on the other side of the sign, I guess you could say. Artillery wise, she has 9 number 8.7 inch guns mounted in 3 triple gun turrets. We have A turret with B turret super firing up front, and then we have wide turrets at the rear. Now, these 8.7 inch guns do offer you the largest caliber guns for a tech tree cruiser, at least for the tier, which is quite nice. However, obviously, if you include some of those premium battle cruisers in the cruiser slot, then obviously these guns obviously do get outclassed, I guess you could say. I might do a little bit of a loop-de-loop here. I'm seeing the Groza Curvers pushing in. I might maybe see if I can stern tank them or something like that. Now, these guns do offer you the longest range of 16.1 kilometers, which is quite nice, I guess you could say. Furthermore, they do offer you the slowest reload of 15.5 seconds per volley, and the slowest turret traverse speed of 31 seconds per 180 degrees of rotation. So, reload speed, turret traverse speed, not a feather in her cap. When it comes to the shell damages and qualities and like that, obviously they're reasonably quite good due to that caliber of shell. She does have the second highest HE shell damage of 3050, along with the average fire chance of 14%. When it comes to the AP shells, these do fare a bit better, being the second highest AP shell damage of 5750. I think we're going to see if we can work over the superstructure of this Groza Curve first. We'll start with AP. I need to aim a bit further back because that seems to splash all over the turrets. And we'll see where we go from there. Anyway, obviously, although the shells are quite good, the reload's pretty poor. And what does that mean when it comes to the DPMs? Well, you are looking at having the second lowest HE DPM, the lowest fires per minute, and the fourth lowest AP DPM. So generally, although initially impressive, that reload speed really does hurt. Torpedoes is a really easy topic to talk about when it comes to the Riga because she has no torpedoes. So that's not something helpful, unfortunately. Without torpedoes, she doesn't have any close-in point defense, which is obviously a detriment. Even if she just had those 4-kilometer screamers, it would have been quite useful as per the other Russian cruisers, but without any torpedoes at all, there's no point-blank defense, unfortunately. Manoeuvrability, certainly not a feather in her cap either. She has an average speed of 33.5 kilometers. She also has the largest turning circle of 920 meters and the joint slowest rudder shift of 11.5 seconds. Concealment wise, she is the second worst, with a detectability of 14.2 kilometers via the sea. She also has an 8.5 kilometer detectability when from aircraft, and an 8.8 kilometer detectability when firing from smoke. Now, I'm trying to be persistent with the AP here. Generally, the AP can yield better results, but as you can see, that dispersion, it's more like a sausage kind of dispersion. It's not length. It's not like lengthways. It's more like longitudinal wise. So it does mean against a broadside she does quite well, but against an angled target it can be a little awkward, especially one that's reversing away and manoeuvring. Now, earlier we did actually see that we were able to knock out a turret on the Gross Curvus, and we are starting to yield some slightly better results if we started to hone in on the Gross Curvus. But all in all, nothing exactly spectacular happening. I mean, we've got kilometres of range to go, so we might just keep working this over, because we have been able to so far do about 25,000 damage to the Gross Curvus. Looks like the Gross Curvus has changed his mind and going to start coming back forwards. But it's interesting to note that we're getting a mix of shatters and bounces here. But when we do hit the superstructure, we are, I think, getting over pen damage. Although that was a nice 3,000 hit. But we are the only ship over here, so we are going to move forward and see what we can do. When it comes to the consumables, the first consumables worth talking about is the repair party. As per all tier 7 cruisers, she does come with a repair party. This will heal 228 HP per second for 28 seconds, meaning that from each repair party she will be able to heal a total of 6,384 HP. Now this does have a 60-second reload. It would be nice if we could actually get some citadels once in a while. Now, in the first consumable slot, I guess you could say, she does have sonar. This will be able to pick up ships at 4.4 kilometers range and torpedoes at 3.1 kilometers range. Has 96-second duration and 180-second reload, and she gets 2 number of these. This can be obviously switched out for defensive AA fire consumable, and that is just the standard, you know what it does kind of situation. Being picked on by some rather large caliber battleships here. What I'm thinking all I have to do really here at the moment is just survive and slow the enemy down a little bit, which should, fingers crossed, allow the friendly team to manoeuvre over from the far camp. So that's what we're going to try and do here. That's one of the reasons why we're going as close as we can to this island to get some cover. And then what I might do is, to assist my team, is actually put my radar on and spot these ships and see if the friendly team can work some of these chaps over. Because you never know, they might be able to finish the Alaska or the Gross Curvus from my spotting. If not, we might have to stick our nose out and see if we can finish one of these. There goes the Alaska, very nice. Now, on to the other option, obviously, what we just used it, is radar. But this can be obviously swapped out for the catapult fighter. Regarding the catapult fighter, you get 3 number of these, it has a 100-second duration and an 80-second reload. When it comes to the radar, what this will offer you is, I was thinking we might have got away with that, but that seems like we didn't, unfortunately. Now, when it comes to the radar, this has 11.7 kilometer range and 20-second duration, along with a 180-second reload. When it comes to the modules, I've taken Aiming Systems Module 1, Steering Gears Module 2 and 3, Main Battery Module 3, which offers you an improved reload but at a detriment to your, what I want to say, detriment to turret traverse speed. Gonna see how stern tanking this thing goes. We didn't actually lock on target, which is a little bit irritating. Well, we should be alright here. So as always, down in the description will be the modules and the command build, and I don't think this game's going to have long in the teeth, unfortunately. I probably made a couple of mistakes while playing due to the way of my reviewing nature. Reviewing, reading out a book and playing at the same time can be slightly distracting. Furthermore, we played a bit of a slow game, I guess you could say. But we're getting some decent AP damage now on the broadside battleship, which is quite nice. Interesting to see that the Iowa is choosing to use HE, which would make sense because I can angle against his caliber of shells. Might be able to put this fire out shortly, or maybe get one more volley out. That'd be nice. There we go. Managed to just get away our last volley. And getting ourselves, it's just a fresh wind and wrapping up the game very nicely. Riga in general, I would say she's a very strong cruiser. She's got a nice armour scheme, which does give her great survivability, which honestly means that even though her manoeuvrability isn't the greatest, even just with some minor tweaks to the manoeuvrability, her survivability kind of makes up for the lack of maneuverability, I guess you say. The artillery, obviously, the slow reload is something I've really worked on. I've reduced that reload as much as possible in order to try and improve my DPMs. The AP does feel quite good. If this ship only came with AP, I wouldn't complain, honestly. Although having HE can be useful, it's just trying to... Whenever I find I'm playing these kind of alternative Russian cruisers, I find that sometimes with the AP I can have a really good game, and other times I can have a really bad game. And so the question is, do I then switch to HE? But if I switch to HE, my potential just stays like kind of like average, I guess you could say. It all really depends on what the enemy does and how they position themselves. And sometimes maybe against a bowing target, you can use HE more often. Maybe I should have used more HE against that Gross Curve at the start. But then I kind of got tempted to keep sticking with AP because I'd managed to knock out one of his turrets, which was quite amusing, especially for an 8.7-inch gun. But yeah, 71,000 damage, 2 kills, 134 hits on target. Yeah, not a lot of damage for all those hits on target, let's be honest. But we did get a flesh wound, and we came fourth on the team, so I can't exactly complain about that. The highest Tier 7 cruiser, yeah, beat the Okachov just, and the second best cruiser on the team, so I can't complain about that. Economy wise, walking away with a total profit of 108,000 credits, and that's with a premium count and a rare credit booster. Obviously the ship service cost in this case was 145,000 credits, so as always the Tier 7 service cost is rather high. I'd always recommend a rare credit booster or higher if you can at Tier 7, and if you can, having a premium count obviously does help with playing at this tier. Otherwise it's going to be focused on saving those credit boosters for the upper tiers, I guess you could say, rather than using them on lower tiers. But that's a matter of opinion, and what you do is down to you. If you did enjoy this, feel free to give it a thumbs up. If you enjoy this content, feel free to subscribe. Down in the description, modules, command build for your reference, along with email address to the channel for sending your own game captures, and a link to Patreon if you want to support the channel on Patreon, as it is a non-monetized channel. Until next time, I'm the Gareth Major, and back to the port.
Hey, hey, clear the way, here comes the galloping major. Bumpity, 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 bump. Get out of the way there, you fellows, unless you want me to run you down. I guess this is the life. Now, hey, hey, clear the way, here comes the galloping